I have been working on this game for almost 2 months now, and somehow balancing it has become even harder than actually making the game. Every time I think I fixed it, I end up creating two new problems. So today, instead of randomly changing numbers again, I'm letting AI help me redesign the balancing system from the ground up. Hopefully, this goes better than the last time. This is Roguemetry, a minimalist roguelike where you survive against endless waves of geometric enemies, level up, unlock upgrades, and try to stay alive for as long as possible. Simple on the surface and surprisingly complicated underneath. Right now, the biggest issue isn't making any new content, it's making the content I already have actually feel fun. Because every weapon, every enemy, upgrade, boss, and spawn timer affects everything else. Sometimes I load into a run and I feel completely overpowered. I can practically stand still and everything dies around me. That obviously isn't experience I'm going for. But then the very next run is the complete opposite. A mini boss shows up, hits me once, and suddenly the run is over. I have tried tweaking enemy health, I have tried tweaking player damage, I have changed movement speeds, spawn timers, upgrade values, pretty much everything. And somehow every change fixes one issue while creating another one somewhere else. Balancing games is honestly way harder than I expected. What's funny is none of these numbers look broken on paper. 5% here, 10% there, individually they seem harmless. But once all these systems start interacting with each other, those tiny adjustments become massive differences during an actual run. That's why balancing can't really be done just by looking at spreadsheets. You actually have to play the game over and over and over again until something finally feels right. And that's what I have been doing for the past 2 months. I have played this game so much and it still doesn't feel right. This gameplay you are watching is one of those test runs. I'm not trying to win, I'm trying to figure out why I am winning or why I am losing. Because once I understand that, fixing the game becomes a lot easier. So while I kept testing, one thing became really obvious. The game wasn't actually getting harder, it was just getting more chaotic. And those aren't the same thing. They totally are not. A good roguelike should constantly push the player. Every minute should feel slightly more dangerous than the last. Not because there are 1,000 enemies on the screen, but because every decision matters more. Right now, my game does not really do that. Sometimes nothing happens for an entire minute, and then suddenly I'm surrounded with almost no way to recover. There are enemies all around me, and I don't even have space to move around. That kind of difficulty feels random, and random difficulty usually feels unfair. I don't want players losing because the game decided to be mean. I want them losing because they made mistakes. So instead of changing random values again, I opened anti gravity and explained exactly what was going wrong. Not just the game is hard, but why it felt hard. Things like the early game being too easy, the sudden difficulty spikes, bosses feeling inconsistent, and enemy scaling making almost no sense after a certain point. The solution it suggested was actually pretty interesting. Instead of one balancing formula running the entire game, it divided the run into multiple phases. Each phase would have completely separate values, enemy health, enemy damage, spawn rates. Everything could be tuned independently. That sounded way more manageable instead of trying to balance a 20-minute run all at once. I'd only need to balance a few minutes at a time. The early game could stay relaxed, the middle of the run could slowly build pressure, and the late game could become genuinely overwhelming without feeling impossible. Honestly, this was the first balancing idea that actually made me excited, not because it guaranteed better gameplay, but because it finally gave me a system I could understand. So, after making all those changes, there was only one thing left to do, and that was to start another run and see whether the game had actually improved or if I had somehow made it even worse. Alright, everything has been updated, the new balancing system is in place, and now it's time to see if all those changes actually made the game better. Right away, I can tell something feels different. Enemies are spawning consistently, the pace feels faster, which is a good sign, at least for now. But after a little longer, I noticed another problem. There were so many enemies on screen that they completely surrounded the experience gems, the points you gather to upgrade your weapons or health, etc. Technically, the game became harder, but not because the enemies were stronger. It was harder because I could not level up anymore. That's not the kind of challenge I want. And this is exactly why balancing is so frustrating. You solve one issue, and another one appears from somewhere you weren't even looking. So I kept watching the numbers. Enemy health looked okay, damage seemed reasonable, spawn timing wasn't terrible. Then I reached the boss, and something immediately felt wrong. The fight was taking way longer than it should. I wasn't dying, I was just waiting. After checking the stats, I finally found the reason. The very first boss had somehow ended up with over 30,000 health. So, yeah, 33,000. And that's not difficult, that's just exhausting. Nobody wants to spend minutes attacking the very first boss. So that change was immediately reverted. Instead of scaling boss health infinitely, bosses now have fixed values that I can balance individually, much simpler. With that fixed, it was time for another run. Hopefully, this one would feel closer to what I had in mind. And of course, the RNG had other plans. I ended up with one of my least favorite weapon combinations. Not exactly the ideal test, but honestly, I'm okay with that. A good roguelike should not hand you the perfect build every single run. Sometimes you have to work with what you are given. Those unlucky runs are usually the most memorable ones anyway. If every build is overpowered, nothing feels special anymore. Unfortunately, this wasn't one of those miracle runs. I made it pretty far, but eventually the mini boss caught me. So, did AI completely solve my balancing problem? Not even close, but it did help me discover problems I would probably have missed on my own. And honestly, that's still progress. Game development isn't about getting everything right the first time, it's about getting a little closer every iteration. Roguemetry still has a long way to go before I'd call it finished, but with every update, every failed run, and every terrible balancing decision, it's slowly becoming the game I originally imagined. If you have got ideas on how you'd balance a rogue like this, I'd genuinely love to hear them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next devlog. Bye bye.